Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Las Vegas Motor Speedway, the place where everyone wants to go for side-by-side action, or you can go to the Strip and you can go to casinos and you can gamble and you can win money, you can crap out, and you can also win in blackjack. And this weekend, every single driver hoped to cash in big, but one driver from Hendrick Motorsports came out on top and cashed in big time. Let's talk about what happened yesterday. Number 1, Alex Bowman picks up his first win of the season and his 7th career victory, capturing yesterday's Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in a fierce battle on the green-white checkered against his teammate Kyle Larson. They had a nice duel at the very end of the race, and Bowman came out on top of turn number 4 and held off to win the race over Kyle Larson and Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, and William Byron. This is a big win for Alex Bowman because the first 2 races this year have not gone the way they'd hoped. They had a crash at Daytona, but they were able to fix the car and run the rest of the race laps down. They had a nice top 10 run going last week until they hit the wall late just a couple seconds before their teammates got together, which you all know that. And this weekend, he had a solid run in the top 10 all day long. He stayed up there. He led a couple laps. He won stage 1, which was his first stage win of the season. And he seemed to be running really well for the most part. He was just cruising in the top 5 at the final stint of the race. And then when we had a caution late with about 2 laps to go for Eric Jones crashing and Bubba Wallace spinning to avoid Eric Jones, that set up a overtime situation. And everybody had a set of tires left. So they all came to pit road. But the 48 car with Greg Ives and Alex Bowman took a gamble and took 2 tires to put themselves in a position to possibly go for the win. In fact, 3 of the 400 cars took 2 tires on the green-white checker pit stop because they wanted to gamble. And in Las Vegas, you have to gamble. So they took the gamble, and it ended up paying off for Alex Bowman and the 48 team. A very nice ally paint scheme, I might add. I like the white and the purple this year. Fully white, purple, and a little bit of blue on there. It's really nice. But it's a good win for the team, and of course, it's a big win for Greg Ives because 5 years ago yesterday, he lost his mom. So this was a pretty big win for him and for the 48 team, and a big win again for Alex Bowman. And the last time he won a race, he was celebrating in Martinsville with Denny Hamlin upset at him. There was another driver that was upset about Alex Bowman, but for the most part, this is a big year, I think, for Alex Bowman. I mean, yes, he's still with Hendrick Motorsports. Yes, he has a job. Yes, he has sponsorship. But this is the year to really show that the 4 wins he had last year weren't fluke wins, and he can dominate some of these races this year. Was he dominant yesterday? No, but was he consistently up front battling for the lead and at least running with the big boys? Yes, he was. And I expect a lot more of that out of Alex Bowman this year, especially with the chemistry he has with Greg Ives. They are a really good pairing. They get things done. They put together some solid results, and yet sometimes things don't go their way. But that's racing. That's what happens in these situations. But I've got a good feeling that this year, Alex Bowman and Greg Ives are going to shine, and they can make a deep run into the playoffs later this year, knowing now that they're locked in, and they got a big win yesterday at Las Vegas, and I think a lot of people need to be paying attention to this team as we progress throughout the season. So a big win, once again, for Alex Bowman and the 48 team. Number 2, Kyle Busch. A rough weekend, but he almost came out on top. He was so close, but no cigar. It started out rough for Kyle Busch because in practice on Saturday, right before the practice qualifying situation we have now with these rules for 2022, Kyle Busch completed 9 laps in practice, but then had a left rear tire go down in turn 3, and he backed his car into the wall. Therefore, he was not able to continue practice and could not qualify his car, so they had to go to a backup car. And that was a 3rd-string backup car, which actually happened to be Denny Hamlin's backup car. So they went to the backup car. They weren't able to qualify. They had to start in the rear of the field. They tried to work their way up towards the field, and they were doing a good job. Then on one of the restarts, he was trying to avoid a wreck and kind of spun, but saved the car and didn't flat spot the tires, thankfully, because we've seen what's been happening lately. When you spin and you flat spot, you're in trouble. But Kyle Busch was able to overcome that, and he actually got to 9th place by the end of stage 1. And he stayed in the top 5 for the most part of stage 2, took the lead in that middle stint, and in the final stage, it looked like he was going to run away with the victory. He got in front of a couple guys on the green flag pit stops, then the caution came out for when his teammate Denny Hamlin stopped on the track because he was stuck in gear, and Kyle Busch took off on the restart, and it looked like he was going to drive away with the victory, even with his teammate Martin Truex Jr. challenging him in the rears. But when the caution came out, it ultimately changed the game and the outcome of the race. And so everybody came to pit road, and as I mentioned, the 3 Hendrick cars took 2 tires, Kyle Busch, and the rest of them took 4 tires. And I thought the 4 tires was going to pay off, but that was not the case, as Kyle Busch was only able to settle for a 4th place finish. He was not happy about Alex Bowman winning the race. He said, this guy just gets lucky wins. He's never dominant. He's never consistent. Well, Kyle, he won the race. If that was you, you would have, you wouldn't have said anything. I mean, you're just like, put ourselves in position, we got the best of them, and we ended up winning the race. That's what you would have said if you would have probably won the race. And is he upset? Yes. Does he have the right to be upset? Absolutely. Kyle Busch hates losing. He wants to win. He wants to win everything. I mean, he was running the truck race Friday night. He had a truck capable of winning, but he didn't win. He finished second to his driver, Chandler Smith. But I understand Kyle Busch's frustration, but considering everything that happened to him this weekend, crashing his primary car in practice, having to go to a backup, avoiding a spin. Actually, the car was stuck in gear at one point during the race, but they were able to fix that, and they didn't have any problems the rest of the race. It's kind of a difference with these sequential shifters, like you're shifting to 5 gears instead of 4 gears now. But they were able to overcome that and get a nice solid finish out of it. So it's a good day overall for the 18 team. I know Kyle would have wanted to win, especially at his home track, his home state, but he put a good effort, the best he possibly could yesterday. Number 3, Ross Chastain and Trackhouse Racing have arrived on the scene. We talked about last weekend, Daniel Suarez's great run at the end of the race, battling for the win with Kyle Larson, but ultimately settling for a 4th place finish. We felt like he could carry that momentum into these next few races, even with the teammate and Ross Chastain, who had a good run going last week, but didn't get the finish he had hoped for. Well, this weekend, Daniel Suarez was not fortunate as he crashed out early after contact with Chase Briscoe, but Suarez was an unfortunate victim in that situation. Ross Chastain, however, they brought their A game yesterday. That number 1 car was fast. I mean, he stayed up there with the Gibbs guys, the Hendrick guys, the Penske guys for the most part, the Stewart-Haas cars, the Richard Childress cars. That team was hauling the mail yesterday. They won Stage 2, the first stage win for Trackhouse Racing. I'm pretty sure Ross Chastain's won a stage before, but I don't exactly remember where he won a stage. But he led the most laps yesterday, 83 laps, the most in his entire career that he's led, the most laps he's led in his entire career at a race that he's competing in. He really had a good race car. And in the final stage, it looked like for a while he was going to win and be the underdog kind of to win. I mean, Trackhouse Racing still getting their feet wet into the sport as a full-time team, and may I remind you, it's a 2-car operation, and it's the remains of Chip Ganassi Racing. But Ross Chastain had a good car yesterday and was running with those Gibbs cars at the very end, but he just got beat on those green flag pit stops, and when that caution came out, he was still stuck behind him, and he could never really get to them. But he was in position for a nice top 5 run, and he ended up getting 3rd at the very end. A great run for this one team in Ross Chastain. He's a really talented driver. I know a lot of people sometimes get a little frustrated, with Ross Chastain because they're like, oh, he just got put into that ride because of his runs with the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. He really hadn't done anything in Cup, but he's still getting his feet wet into competitive equipment in the Cup Series, and this team's a good team. They're going to get better as the season progresses and as the years go on. And I got a good feeling that this year we will see Ross Chastain or Daniel Suarez, or probably both, get to victory lane by the end of the season. They are running really well so far. I love the speed that they have, and I love the confidence. And Chastain was so happy in his post-race interview with the run that they had. It will not be long before he's in victory lane and he's smashing watermelons like he typically does every time he wins a race. So be prepared, watermelons. Your time is going to come to get smashed on the start-finish line. Number 4, Hendrick Motorsports in general, kind of a mixed emotion week for them leading up to this weekend. Of course, off of last weekend with the Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott incident, Hendrick Motorsports and Rick Hendrick and Jeff Gordon talked about the situation. They talked to the drivers, sat down. All of them had a meeting virtually because we're still kind of in the middle of COVID stuff, but we're getting a little bit of normalcy back. They had a conversation. Larson talked to Chase yesterday, this weekend, and they seemed to be on good terms. I mean, everybody says it's going to be drama between these two guys. Let's pump the brakes. Just because we've seen teammates get into each other this year doesn't necessarily mean it's going to carry on for the rest of the season. There's going to be some tense moments with the team, but the team owner is the guy that has to step in and control the drivers. You got to put the reins on him. Like, you have to hold a horse back when he gets a little antsy. He wants to go. He wants to go for a ride out on the prairie or something like that. But I feel like that the Hendrick guys were able to put that beside, and they were able to have good runs this week. And as mentioned, the win from Alex Bowman, but Kyle Larson's second place finish, a really good race car. At times it seemed like he had the car to beat, and then he kind of fall back. I mean, there was one moment in the race where he was battling Ross Chastain for the lead, and he nearly lost it in 3 and 4, and it felt like he's going straight to the wall. He hung on to that thing. There's nobody that lost a hold of these out-of-control cars like Kyle Larson. He's just the best at it, other than Kyle Busch, but that was a great save, and it was a good run. It was a nice battle for the win between teammates there. They raced each other hard, but clean. What we probably wanted to see if these teammates were racing each other for the victory. And I felt like Kyle Larson raced Alex Bowman cleanly, and they put together a good result yesterday. William Byron in the 24 car, 5th place finish. I mean, they had a good run. They had a good race car yesterday. They kind of fell back on some of their pit stops, but as we got into a couple of laps into a run, he was able to methodically work his way up through the field, and it seemed like at times maybe he had a car that could challenge him. But ultimately, a 5th place finish is really good for William Byron. And then Chase Elliott had a 9th place finish yesterday, which was pretty good because at the beginning of the race, that car was not looking good at all. It was out of control. It was free, but they tightened it up. They made some adjustments, and his car getting better and better in the race. Then in the final stage, it seemed like the handling had gone away on him, and he fell back to as low as 15th. But when that caution came out to set up overtime, they took 4 tires, unlike his teammates, and that probably helped them get a top 10 finish. Now, could they have taken 2 tires and battled for the win? Sure, but what we saw from some of these guys on the restarts yesterday, if you took 2 tires or you took no tires, you were going to fall way back into the field because the 4 tires, it doesn't make you faster, it just lets you maneuver the race car. However, the 2-tire gamble worked for the three of the 4 Hendrick cars, and the other car got a top 10 out of it. But all in all, it was a good week for Hendrick and a good week not just for the drivers, but for the team as well. As we all know, in the world right now, there is the thing going on with Ukraine and Russia. Well, Rick Hendrick donated $200,000 from him and his automotive group to Ukraine to help their efforts and helping the people who are suffering over there, and they need all the help possible. And for him to send $200,000 over there is very, very generous. But he also said that every lap that our cars lead this weekend, we will throw an additional $2,000 to Ukraine. So in total, the Hendrick cars led 51 laps yesterday. So 51 times 2,000 is $102,000. So in total, they're sending $302,000 over to support efforts in Ukraine. That's so generous. And Mr. Hendrick, he's such a nice guy. He's such a great dude. I mean, there's nobody better. I mean, maybe Richard Childress with him sending the ammunition to help those people defend themselves. That's a very generous thing for him to do. But it was a very generous week for Hendrick and a good week in general, being good Samaritans and being the victors of this weekend in Vegas. So all in all, really good for them. And number 5, the racing product at 1.5 miles with the NextGen car. The first race of the season where we race on 1.5 miles with the brand new car. Would the racing be similar to what we saw last weekend at Auto Club, even though Auto Club's a little bumpier and you can move around anywhere? I'm not saying Las Vegas you can't move anywhere. Yes, you can. You can run bottom, middle, high, groove. You can run anywhere on this racetrack. We're wondering, would the racing at Las Vegas and on 1.5 miles with this car be good for the sport and put together some really good moments in the race and put together some intense moments, some exciting moments? Well, I gotta say, they lived up to it. That was one of the best 1.5 mile race we've seen in a while. I mean, Las Vegas has turned into a really fun racetrack to run at. I mean, with the 550 package, there were some moments on the restarts, and then they would get spread out, and then dirty air, I mean, you couldn't pass. But with this car, we've learned with this car in 1.5 miles, you can pass, even on long runs. These cars are a handful. These guys are fighting tooth and nail. They're getting numbness in their legs. I mean, Tyler Reddick had it again this week. Eric Almirola, I think, had it. These guys are just absolutely manhandling these race cars, hang on for dear life, but they're putting together some great racing out there. I mean, the moments of these guys running 3 wide, 4 wide, side by side, passing each other left and right. It's what we've wanted on these 1.5 mile tracks. Now, granted, this is the first one, and there are totally different 1.5 mile tracks coming up, especially Atlanta, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far out of this NextGen car, especially on the 1.5 mile, which we wanted some exciting moments on 1.5 mile. We want some good racing. We got it yesterday, and I hope it continues through the rest of the season. So far, a super speedway, a 2 mile, a 1.5 mile. The racing's been great. We are knocking out of the park with this NextGen car. It's going to continue to hopefully get better and better as the season goes on. But these guys yesterday put on a really good show. It was a really good race in general, and I enjoyed it very, very much. And I'm so thrilled to see this type of racing on 1.5 miles. I know a lot of other fans are as well, and hopefully we get more good 1.5 mile races as the season goes on. And the Fox broadcast that we had yesterday was Mike Joy, Clint Boyer, and Danica Patrick, former NASCAR/IndyCar driver, joined us, and I thought you did a good job bringing insight to the race. I mean, she hadn't run a NASCAR race since the 2018 Daytona 500, which was her final race, and she got taken out in that, unfortunately. But she hadn't been in a race car since the 2018 Indy 500, which she also got right. But she brought good insight yesterday. It was fun to see her and Clint Bowyer work together again. Of course, they were teammates at Stewart-Haas when he was coming to the team in 2017, and she didn't need to know at the time, but it would have been her final season. She retired from full-time competition after that season. But they brought good insight yesterday, and we're going to have Danica again for next week at Phoenix, so it'll be interesting to see what she brings to the table with her insight next weekend. But all in all, the racing this weekend and the race in general, it was just awesome. I liked it very much. So that is it for Las Vegas. The final race of the West Coast Swing will be in Phoenix next weekend, and next week is the real test for this next-gen car, because the next time we come back here in November, we're going to have 4 drivers battle for the championship. This is the biggest project for these cars, like a science project, like science fair. You want to do well for the judges. You want to do well for your team and for the people that have supported you through all of this. Well, this upcoming race is a big assignment for these teams. If you can have a good run on Sunday and you have a good car and you possibly run well and win the race at Phoenix, you're more than likely going to enjoy your car when you come back here in November when we're deciding who your 2022 NASCAR champion's going to be. There's going to be a lot of drivers hitting it, and then some drivers are going to miss it. And if you miss it, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what you could do the next time you come here in the fall if you're perhaps battling other guys for the championship. It's going to be a real test for these guys next week, but I'm excited to see what happens, especially with that dog leg, and these restarts at Phoenix are crazy. With this car so far, these restarts and everything, I can't imagine how next week's going to go. I'm already giddy as a little kid. I can't wait to get to Phoenix and see what these guys put on. It's going to be great. I think it's going to be a really good race, and it's just, this car so far, I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it so much. But yes, we're off to Phoenix next week, the last race of the West Coast Swing. Then we'll head back to the East Coast in 2 weeks. But let's finish the West Coast Swing this week and see what drivers do. So, will Alex Bowman capitalize off of this win yesterday and carry it over to next week? Or will last year's Cup champion, who won last year's fall race in the championship, Kyle Larson, show that he has the speed and can do it on the long runs? Because I'm going to keep in mind, the Hendrick cars that were battling for the championship last year were short-run cars. The Gibbs cars were the long-run cars. You're going to find out next weekend how good you are on a short run and a long run. So I'm excited to see what happens next week. I hope you all enjoyed Las Vegas race this week. It was really a lot of fun to watch. Subscribe, like, and congrats to Alex Bowman, Greg Ives, and the 48 team on capturing their first win of the 2022 NASCAR season. They are officially playoff bound. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Let's go racing!